Welcome back. You're watching Stock Picks, and today we unpack US stocks. So that's Crowdstrike, Apple, and Eli Lilly with Vestact, Bright Khumalo. Bright, it's a pleasure. Good afternoon to you.
Good afternoon.
Fantastic. Maybe before we get into the nitties of these stocks, is there a reason why you've gone with these counters today?
Yeah, I mean, they all operate in different categories or, sectors. CrowdStrike is in cybersecurity. Apple is a little bit more of a conglomerate at this point because they've got, different products in their portfolio, which we're going to unpack just now. And Eli Lilly is in the biomedical space, or so that's also quite interesting with new drugs developing their weight loss drugs in particular. So, but I'm going to explain why I prefer it as compared to, the bigger other counters in the sector. So I like a diversified portfolio, and this is one way to get started on, building one.
Let's actually start with Eli Lilly because, Bright, it looks like in the world the only thing bigger than AI is weight loss.
Look, you say weight loss, I say weight gain, and obviously the related diseases to having or going around with excess weight. And I mean, if you find quote unquote, the pill or the solution to resolving weight gain, you're gonna make a decent living out of that. And I think Eli Lilly and Novo Nordisk, both known for targeting type 2 diabetes, since the beginning of both companies, for Eli Lilly it would be the late 1800s, and for Novo Nordisk, it's also older than 100 years. So these companies have always, been in the center of, trying to cure type 2 diabetes, even from the beginning. But now, obviously, a company like Eli Lilly, they have a sort of a diversified portfolio in themselves because they have not only drugs that focus on, diabetes, there's also neuroscience drugs, their immunology, cardiovascular, other drugs, and cancer drugs in the space, and most importantly, most recently, Alzheimer's. We'll probably talk more about that. But the reason why I chose Eli Lilly today is because of Mounjaro and Zepbound, those two drugs. Mounjaro being the one that targets type 2 diabetes, and it's basically the same drugs because they're made from the same thing, but they marketed for different things. Mounjaro is, like I said, type 2 diabetes, and Zepbound for weight loss in general. So you don't need a script to go get Zepbound, but you do need a script to get Mounjaro. And in a country, in a world where obesity is, has surpassed malnourishment, with over 1 billion people who are obese and about 550 million people who are malnourished, I think it makes sense to invest in a company that is trying to lower and alleviate, obesity and its related diseases.
I want to touch also on Eli Lilly, just the amount of money that they are pumping into these drugs. And I think you also mentioned the Alzheimer's being a focus area for them, Bright. But I think even amidst all the money that they are putting in the research and development of these drugs, it's also very clear that that stock continues to outpace the S&P 500. It tells me that investors are even keen on the stock, even though so much capital is being pushed in that direction.
No, in the biomedical space, or in any drug development business, essentially about 20% of your revenue goes back into research and development. It's not like new money is, all of a sudden coming somewhere and, converging towards weight loss. This is something they've been working on for over 30 years. I mean, these are not new drugs in the sense of their newness, but in terms of what they found and how effective it has been in terms of weight loss and type 2 diabetes. yes, they are new in that sense, but these drugs, for example, Eli Lilly has had Trulicity, for over 10 years. That's been the current medication for type 2 diabetes, which helps also improve things like, blood sugar controls and reduce, cardiovascular events like a heart attack and the like. So these drugs have been around. It's just that the effectiveness on your weight loss now, it's so drastic and so significant that it makes sense to sell them purely for weight loss as well, on top of the added benefits of, the cardiovascular side of things that they're trying to alleviate. So, yeah, I mean, the research and development for these businesses is cost of doing business. So there's no surprises there. In terms of beating the market, you want to be invested in a company that in the long term is high quality enough that it's going to beat, an index of 500 companies. So it makes sense that Eli Lilly has done well, not just today, but in the past as well, because they've always, if you watched some of these US older series back in the 90s, you will know the word Prozac, which is an antidepressant medication used to treat depression, anxiety, and other disorders. This is an Eli Lilly drug, and it's been a rock star in their portfolio from the early 90s, and they still have that drug that they still sell. So they're basically not a one-hit wonder or a new company if you're worried about that as a long-term investor.
And then let's talk about Crowdstrike. It's also a very, very fascinating company. I will be very honest, Bright, I don't find cybersecurity to be interesting and exciting, but I think with the way the world is going with AI, there's lots of potential for this sector to keep booming, but also for the stock to keep running.
Yeah, I like the way you're introducing it. You're saying you're not really interested in cybersecurity, but you understand its importance in the world. I mean, this is probably one of my core tenets when I look for an investment. The more boring the investment is, and the better I understand it in terms of its quality, the most likely it is going to do well in the future, especially if it's going to be distributed as widely as the Crowdstrike product, which if you have a computer, you basically need endpoint protection, and Crowdstrike provides that, especially if you start, using your computer for business. We all know those, what used to be an occasional phishing, attack, and now it's more than that. There's malware, there's ransomware, and other cyber attacks that, as soon as your business starts to succeed, people start trying all of these methods to try and, hold either the business hostage, so you can give them an amount for them to get rid of that ransomware that they've put into your, your machines, or you can have CrowdStrike here, which, constantly monitors and tries to find and obviously responds, in a timely fashion to these cyber attacks. And I think we've seen a lot of rise in cyber attacks globally, and even here locally in South Africa with, one of the large government employee pension funds, being held hostage, for an example. That's not the first, and that's probably not the last company that's going to be struggling with such. So I would recommend them use the CrowdStrike product, Falcon in particular, because we all need it. If you want to be a digital native, you want to need something, to protect you from all of these people trying to penetrate from outside.
I also ask you, when we speak of cybersecurity and the ability for it to be rolled out and scalability, Bright, in my mind, and I could be thinking about it differently, which I'm keen to get your input on it, is when a person gets a cybersecurity product, it is a once-off thing. But of course, there's numbers that could help in making that a little bit more profitability. So I'm trying to understand is the revenue model that makes it lucrative.
It's your typical recurring revenue model. I don't know. I can't remember the Scott Galloway, shortening of words, what he calls it. But it's basically you incur a monthly fee if you're using this product, and that's recurring revenue. So, for example, people, businesses and individuals who pay over $1 million per month for a cybersecurity product from Crowdstrike has grown about 33% year on year from last year to this year. So $1 million in our terms is about 19 million rand, and that's a lot of money that you're receiving per month from these clients that you have. So in terms of being a once-off, it's definitely not a once-off because ongoing thing. Threats aren't once-off because threats are constant and they're erratic. You don't know when a threat is going to present itself. Some threats are also from within. So you might think you're only securing yourself from someone trying to penetrate you outside, but sometimes some of these threats come from within, some smart employees from within who are trying to penetrate it through your system to see how strong it is and how much it can withstand, and obviously trying to get away with that. So they're not once off, and it's pretty lucrative since it's repeat business and at a large scale. Almost, a lot of these big conglomerates, listed businesses, the Fortune 500s of the world, do use Crowdstrike as their preferred endpoint protector in terms of cybersecurity, and obviously there are other businesses there. For example, Microsoft tried to develop their own competing product to Crowdstrike to no avail and with little success. But other companies that come to mind, for example, is Cloudflare. Cloudflare does something similar to Crowdstrike, but it's more on the website of the business, so like your website and the likes, whereas Crowdstrike is more on the software side and obviously more, broader in terms of what they encompass in protecting your machines and your business from. And since we're all, becoming cloud natives and all of our stuff lives in the cloud, the next thing, the last thing you want as an individual, especially, is to, being on the next list of, the fappening or, the next leak. You don't want to be part of that. So definitely look into CrowdStrike, and what a better way, to benefit from it by investing in the guys that actually make the product directly. And I mean, if you go and put that share price chart up, it's outperformed the market by multiples since its listing. And I think we are not done yet here because people who are actually using their product, or businesses that should be using their products, they still delay the capital outlay to actually invest in a good, cybersecurity, endpoint protection, and intelligence and business. So I think eventually it's going to come to a point where all of these businesses start spending on this, and CrowdStrike will still be there.
Let's talk about Apple now. You called Apple a conglomerate, and that's a very interesting word because in our minds, of course, we think hardware and all the software that comes with it. But Apple has become a more colorful and interesting company, hasn't it, Bright?
Yes, it has. I mean, it's very different than, in 1976 when Steve Jobs and Steve Wozniak, founded this in their parents' garage, or however the story goes. I say it's a conglomerate because you can view it as having these big, small businesses within the business itself. And think about the iPhone business itself, for example. It's about 40% of the whole thing. If you add the iPad, MacBooks, including iMacs, the one people use for designs, MacBook Pros, and obviously the laptops, and all of that could be a business in itself if you include accessories as well, which is how they actually report on it if you look at their financials. I mean, the Apple Watch, is a business that was started in 2015, but rumor has it that today in revenues they make more, or they've made more in revenues since 2015 to today than the entire Swiss watch industry has made since their inception in the 1930s. So that just shows you the power of Apple and how they can attract the right high-end individuals to invest or buy their products, for lack of a better word. So, I mean, if you do zoom back as well, you look at, since the introduction of the cloud and all the services business, things like, the operating systems, the iOS, Apple TV, iCloud, Apple Music, and Apple Pay, and obviously the old Apple Store. That services business was zero not so long ago, 2014, 2015. And today it's so big, it's the second biggest unit after the iPhone. So it just shows you, what Apple can do in a short period of time. And what's a better time to buy Apple than when it's out of favor, which is, where they currently are. And to add salt to wound, Warren Buffett sold his stake. Well, he trimmed down his stake in Apple, and all of the market participants says Warren Buffett is the smartest investor ever. So if he's trimming down his stake, I should be trimming down mine. I don't know. I still think this is a great buying opportunity. And Warren Buffett and I have very different, time horizons. It makes sense for him. He's closer to 100 than I am to trim down his stake. So for me, it makes sense to be building a stake, especially since it's such a well-run business.
Right, we don't have much time left, but I want to ask you why that has happened. Why have we seen Apple, lose favor a little bit? What has transpired there? And like you're saying, in the long term, this could obviously is an opportunity for a recovery.
There's nothing has changed at Apple. It's still a good quality business. It's just, these things they ebb and flow. Some businesses go out of favor for no reason. I mean, I could try find a reason and say maybe it's because, the iPhone isn't selling as expected in China. But I mean, if it's not selling as expected in China, it will sell more somewhere like India or elsewhere. And those sales will be netted off by, that region. But I can't find, a crack in Apple's business model. It's still the good quality business that we liked at the beginning, that we still like. So it makes sense to add to it. But I mean, when I mean it's out of favor, I'm not saying it's down 60% and, it's a buying opportunity of a lifetime. Yeah, this thing is only down, 20% in the past year and a half. So it's not really down. It's just sideways. It has gone sideways, essentially.
Well, we don't have much time left, Bright. I think on the side we have to leave it. Thank you for your time this afternoon. It's always a pleasure having you on Stock Picks with us. That was Bright Khumalo from Vestact with your Tuesday edition of Stock Picks.